Welcome to Inside the Lines, presented by BetMGM. Joined by Nick Bonaddio and Aaron Schatz, I'm Olivia Harlan Dekker. So the Cowboys handled the Eagles with ease. They've won every game since losing to Philadelphia, and they've tied the 49ers for the longest active win streak in the NFL. So let's see how their odds have shifted across the futures markets. Cowboys' odds to win the Super Bowl improved 25% to plus 750, tying them for the fifth best odds. Their odds to win the NFC moved slightly from plus 450 to plus 400, while winning the division became much more realistic, with their odds improving over 40% to plus 225. Dak Prescott was the co-favorite to win MVP before the win against the Eagles, but now he sits alone as the favorite at plus 150. Dallas will have to win 3 of their final 4 games to hit the over on their current win total of 12.5. If you don't think that will happen, you can bet the under at a much better price than you could last week at minus 130. Aaron, the future in Dallas isn't bright. Do you see any value on one of these Cowboys?
Yeah, I'm buying the Cowboys to win the NFC East at plus 225. My simulations would put the value of this bet closer to plus 175, with the Cowboys winning the NFC East 37% of the time. Obviously, the difference in schedule strength is a problem for the Cowboys. The Eagles have the Seahawks this week and then go Giants, Cardinals, Giants for what looks like 3 easy wins. But if the Seahawks can upset the Eagles, that gives the Cowboys room to lose one of their last 4 games and still take the division about half the time. My simulations love the 49ers so much that these numbers don't give you value for the Cowboys on winning the NFC or the Super Bowl. As for 12.5 wins, my simulations average out at exactly 12.5 wins. So there's no value there.
Okay, I love that. Nick, which Cowboys futures are you buying?
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to the Cowboys, I think the book on them is officially flipped from underrated to overrated. They're not the most likely to win the NFC. That's the 49ers. They're not the most likely to win the NFC East. That's the Eagles. And Dak isn't the most likely to win the MVP. That's Brock Purdy. So while I'm tempted to fade that narrative switch and take the under here, like Aaron, my model projection is dead on at around 12.5, 12.6 wins. So getting plus value at that number, I think just from an ROI perspective, that has to be the play here. Not only that, this actually sets up one of my favorite betting positions, which is where you can take a position in a futures bet and then hedge it, like you can here with taking an over position on this bet, then a Dolphins money line bet next week.
Okay, I like it. Well, let's stick with NFC futures for a little bit, but head to the tightest divisional race in the NFL. We did not see this one coming. The Buccaneers, Falcons, Saints are all tied for the division lead at 6 and 7. Atlanta was the heavy favorite last week, but they lost to Tampa, so their odds dropped big time to plus 175. With the Buccaneers win, their odds improved over 50% to plus 165, making them the new favorite. The Saints, with a win over the Panthers, improving their odds by over 45% to plus 200.
Yeah, I mean, the old maxim of when in doubt, take the best QB really collapses here when you're talking about Baker Mayfield, Desmond Ridder, and Derek Carr, doesn't it? In the absence of that, I think you have to look to the metrics, both from the team and the schedule perspective. And even though the Saints are the best team here from an expected points perspective, I think you have to like the Falcons here, given the soft matchup the next 2 weeks against Carolina and then home against Indianapolis. Comparably speaking, Tampa draws Green Bay and then Jacksonville, while New Orleans gets the Giants and the Rams. So given that the Saints are the best team and the Saints and Falcons have the easiest 2 weeks, I actually like eliminating the Falcons here and then essentially taking both Atlanta and New Orleans at 3-1 odds, which also leaves some room for hedging over the next 2 weeks.
Okay, Aaron, who do you see winning this division?
Well, I want to go with the Falcons or the Saints because I was on them as playoff teams before the season because I loved those easy NFC South schedules. However, my numbers do give the Buccaneers the best chance to win the NFC South. It does matter that they currently hold all the tiebreakers because these 3 teams are very similar. All of them rank between 21st and 25th in weighted DVOA. But I'm going to add that none of these bets are of good value because of what the odds are. So while I think Tampa is the most likely to win the division, I wouldn't put money on that or the Saints or the Falcons.
Okay, good insight. It's time to focus on this week's action, and we're going to look at who the public is loving. Let's stick in the NFC as well. The public is all over the game between the Commanders and Rams in LA. The Rams have scored 31 or more points in 3 straight games, and the public has noticed as more than 90% of early bets are on the over. And with so much action, the total has moved up 2 points into the 50s. Aaron, are you fading the public on one of the highest totals of the week?
My system has this as very close to no bet, but slightly fading the public and going with under 50.5. Now, if I'm going to put money on this game, I would rather go with the favored Rams and the spread of 6.5 points.
Nick, what do you think? Is the public right?
Yeah, I'm actually fading the public here. Like Aaron, I have this model right around 49, 49 and a half. So to me, it's more of a lean towards no bet. But just on the basis of how bad the Commanders' offense is, if you are going to play this total, I think you have to go under. The Commanders haven't scored more than 20 points in over a month. And I think, I believe in the Rams and their ability to put up numbers against the Commanders. I don't have a lot of confidence on the other side of that. And so this is probably a no bet. But if I had to put down money, I'm definitely fading the public and going under.
Okay, well, another total that the public is loving is in the big game between the Broncos and the Lions. It's played in Detroit. The total's moved up 1 point with 83% of the early bets and 90% of the money on the over. The Lions have given up at least 26 points in 5 straight games, while the Broncos have leaned on their defense to win 6 of their last 7. Aaron, are you fading the public or siding with the public on this total?
This is a tough one because offense is more predictive than defense, but obviously these defenses have been changing. We know that the Broncos defense has been much better in recent weeks and the Lions defense has been much worse, but those facts sort of cancel each other out. So I'm narrowly siding with the public on the over for this game, but this is another line that I would really stay away from.
Nick, what do you think of this total?
Yeah, this is a no bet for me. I know people want, takes and they want hot opinions, but simply the volatility of both these teams is kind of too high for me. My model, I track a variable called Vega, which is basically looking at the unpredictability of a team on a week-to-week basis versus their expected performance. It just so happens that both of these teams are number 1 and number 5 respectively. Denver just isn't the same team that gave up like 300 points to the Dolphins, and Detroit isn't really the same team that started 9-2. And so with that kind of variance, that really screams no bet to me.
Right. Yeah, some weird outliers there. It's time to check out some trends, and we'll stick with totals for this one. Looking at unders, they're still dominating. Since week 5, unders are 82, 61, and 1. That's almost 57% of the time. There have been only 5 weeks all season where more games went over than under, 3 of which came in each of the last 3 weeks, but it's not enough to change the long-term trend. So Aaron, do you like to go under this weekend?
I'm going to go with under 50.5 in Dallas at Buffalo. The Bills' defense, after struggling at midseason, has reversed itself a bit. Since week 10, the Bills rank 8th in defensive DVOA. The Cowboys are 10th in that same period. Add in 15-mile-an-hour winds and a chance of rain, and I think that this game can go under the number, even though these offenses have been hot recently.
Do you have another under for us?
Yeah, I'm liking the Steelers Colts under 42 and a half. I know everyone is waited on bated breath for the dream matchup between Trubisky and Minshew. But even on a fast track like Lucas Oil, we're still dealing with 2 pretty bad offenses, with the Colts at number 18 and the Steelers at number 25 in terms of expected points added. On the flip side, you've got the Steelers defense at number 10 and the Colts at number 13, which is really just a mathy way of saying that unless there's a lot of turnovers, I don't see this number getting there. And in fact, it models out to about 40.
Let's check out another trend, but switch to spreads. These teams have been very good at bouncing back after a loss, at least when it comes to covering the spread. The Lions have covered the spread after every time they've lost so far this season, so they're looking to make it 4-0 against Denver this weekend. Colts and Steelers, they've both covered in 4 out of 5 after a loss this season and conveniently play each other this weekend. And the Chiefs have only failed to cover the spread once after a loss as well. And of course, they're big favorites in New England. Seahawks have lost 4 straight, but have covered in back-to-back games. So, Nick, are you going to go with your Steelers to cover against the Colts? You've already mentioned that game.
Yeah, lest anyone accuse me of being a homer, let it be said, I'm picking against the Steelers this week. I say with tears running down my face, my family disowning me and forcing me to make
Yeah.
alternative plans for the holidays. Without getting into any unnecessary analytics or information, let me just say that the closest statistical comparables to Mitch Trubisky are Nathan Peterman and Heath Schuler. And so if you want to put your hard-earned money on any of those dudes on the road, you can be my guest, but I cannot, in good faith, say that I endorse it or recommend it.
That is some good historical research. That one. Aaron, which one of these teams do you like to cover after losing last weekend?
I'm going opposite. I'm actually going to take the Steelers plus 1.5 at the Colts, because the Steelers' defense is still very good, and the offense did get it going in the second half against the Patriots. And the Colts are just a fairly average team in pretty much every way, and that's kind of the team that Steelers can upset. So I'm going with Steelers plus 1.5.
Okay, I'll be watching that one closely. It's sometime props. We're going to share a favorite, either the Sunday night game or the Monday night game. Aaron, are you eyeing Ravens Jaguars or Eagles Seahawks?
Let's go with Ravens Jaguars, and my favorite primetime prop this week is Calvin Ridley over 50.5 receiving yards. Now, the Baltimore Ravens give up an average of 76 yards per game to the opposing number one wide receiver, and I think the Jaguars are going to need to be throwing the ball late in this game because I am expecting a Ravens victory. That means finding Ridley, especially without Christian Kirk, to get Trevor Lawrence's attention. So Calvin Ridley over 50.5 receiving yards.
Okay, Nick, which prop are you backing in primetime?
I like Gus Edwards under 31.5 rushing yards. Don't take that as an endorsement of the Jaguars' rushing defense. They're dead average in the league at number 16 in terms of expected points. Instead, take this as an endorsement of Keaton Mitchell, who was the vastly more productive option in Baltimore, and a call out of the fact that over the past two games, Gus Edwards has received less snaps than Mitchell, Justice Hill, and Patrick Ricard. This prop is asking you to take an inefficient runner operating at a 45% success rate that gets the fourth most snaps out of the four running backs on the roster on a line that he's been under 3 out of 4 weeks. That's a no thanks for me.
Okay, definitely can see that. So before we wrap up the episode, we're going to give you our blue chip bets, aka our best bets. It's anything we love: spread, money line, total, prop, whatever you want. Nick, the floor is yours. What is your blue chip bet?
I like T. Higgins over 39.5 receiving yards this week. That line is way too low for a player of T. Higgins' talent. He's an every snap player for the Bengals, playing for a surprisingly efficient quarterback in Jake Browning, getting over 20% target share against a middling defense in a home matchup. On top of all that, Minnesota ranks top 10 in taking away the first read, which in the Bengals offense is obviously Jamar Chase 31% of the time. So it stands to reason that if the Vikings pull Jake Browning off of that read, T. Higgins will be the obvious beneficiary. My projections like this number all the way to 45, so getting it 39 is a really great value.
Yeah, great value there. Aaron, what's your blue chip bet?
My blue chip bet is going back to the Baltimore Ravens, -3 on the road to face the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday night. Now, we still don't know how hobbled Trevor Lawrence will be, but remember that DVOA absolutely loves the Ravens this year because of their big dominating wins over good but not great teams. And good but not great, that's the Jacksonville Jaguars in a nutshell. They've been riding a strong defensive performance for much of the year, but after the last couple weeks, I'm not sure how real that defensive performance really is. So let's go with the Ravens for another win on their way to the AFC 1 seed.
All right, gentlemen, thank you both so much for your insight and research and prep. We love it. And thanks for all of you at home for watching Inside the Lines. We'll be back every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you next week.